Jake Morrison stood in the middle of the huge room. Around him sat creatures from different worlds. Some had blue skin and long arms. Others looked like giant insects with many eyes. A few had scales like reptiles. They all stared at him with cold eyes. The room was quiet except for the sound of breathing and clicking from the alien beings. Jake wore his best uniform, but he felt small in this place. The walls reached high above his head, covered in strange symbols that glowed with soft light. "The human species has been found guilty," said the creature at the front. She had purple tentacles instead of arms and spoke in a voice that sounded like water flowing over rocks. "You are too dangerous for civilized space." Jake felt his heart beat faster. He had expected this, but hearing the words still hit him like a punch too. The stomach. Behind the main speaker, other aliens nodded their heads or made sounds of agreement. "Your people fight too much," continued another alien, this one covered in thick fur. "You destroy things without thinking. You make weapons when others make art." Jake wanted to speak, but the rules said he could only listen. The trial had lasted 4 days, and now came the final judgment. He thought about Earth, about the colonies on Mars, and the mining stations in the asteroid belt. He thought about the millions of humans who would be affected by what happened here today. A third alien stood up. This one looked almost human, except for the extra pair of arms and silver eyes. "The council has decided. All humans must return to their home system within 72 hours. You will not be allowed to leave that system again." The words echoed in the chamber. Jake felt the weight of them settle on his shoulders like a heavy blanket. Exile. Complete exile from the galaxy. Any human found outside the Sol system after the deadline will be destroyed, added the tentacled leader. Any ship, any station, any settlement. This is final. Far from the council chambers, Captain Lisa Grant received the message aboard the space station, New Geneva. She read the words 3 times before they sank in. Around her, the crew stopped their work and looked at her face. They could tell something was very wrong. "All hands, prepare for immediate evacuation," Lisa said into her communicator. Her voice stayed calm, but inside she felt like screaming. "This is not a drill. All personnel report to your stations." The station came alive with movement. People ran through the halls carrying bags and equipment. Alarms rang out, adding to the noise. Lisa watched through the windows as ships began to dock at the station. They would need every vessel they could find on Mars. Dr. Amy Foster worked quickly in her laboratory. She had only hours to save 20 years of research. Her hands moved fast as she copied files onto storage devices. Around her, other scientists did the same thing. They grabbed the most important data and left the rest behind. "The plants," said her assistant, pointing to the greenhouse section. "What about the new food plants we created?" Amy looked at the rows of green plants that could grow in harsh conditions. They had spent years developing them. Now they would have to leave them for the aliens to destroy or study. "Take samples," she said, "as many as you can carry. We'll start again on Earth." In the command center on Earth, Admiral Pete Collins watched. The biggest rescue operation in human history. Thousands of ships moved between the colonies and Earth. Families carried their belongings in bags and boxes. Children cried as they left the only homes they had ever known. "Status report," Pete said to his aide. 40% of the colonies have been evacuated. We're running out of time." Pete looked at the clock on the wall. 60 hours left. They would not save everyone. Some people lived too far away. Some refused to leave. Some were already dead, killed by alien forces that moved to take over human territory, at the edge of human space. Commander Rick Hayes flew his ship away from Alpha Centauri. Behind him, alien warships waited like vultures. They wanted to make sure no humans stayed behind. Rick had been born on the planet below. Now he watched it grow smaller through his window. "Sir, incoming message from the surface," said his communications officer. put it through. The voice that came through the speakers belonged to an old farmer. "We're staying," the man said. "This is our home. They'll have to drag us out." Rick closed his eyes. He knew what would happen to anyone who stayed. The aliens had made their intentions clear. No mercy, no exceptions. "I understand," Rick said. "Good luck." He cut the connection and ordered his ship to continue toward Earth. Behind him, the alien ships moved closer to the planet. In a few hours, any humans left would be gone forever. In the asteroid belt, Dr. Ben Clark continued his work. While others packed and ran, he stayed in his hidden laboratory. The council thought they were sending humans into exile. They did not know about the secret research stations scattered through the outer system. Ben looked at his latest creation. It was small, no bigger than his hand, but it contained technology that the aliens had never seen. If the council wanted to exile humanity, they would soon learn what humans could do when they had time to think and plan. His assistant entered the lab. "Doctor, the evacuation ships are calling. We need to go." Ben shook his head. "Not yet. A few more hours. I need to finish this." "But the deadline is for them," Ben said, pointing toward the inner system. "This place doesn't exist on any official maps. We have time." The assistant looked worried but nodded. Ben was the smartest person he knew. If anyone could figure out how to fight back against the exile, it would be him. As the hours passed, more ships filled with humans headed for Earth. The aliens watched and counted, making sure their orders were followed. They thought they were solving a problem. They thought they were making the galaxy safer. They were wrong. They had just given humanity the greatest gift possible, the motivation to become something more than they had ever been before. In trying to contain the human threat, they had created something much worse for themselves. The exile was not an ending. It was a beginning. 25 years had passed since the exile began. The galaxy had moved on, forgetting about the humans locked away in their small corner of space. Trade routes flowed around the Sol system like water around a stone. The alien races grew richer and stronger, while humanity remained trapped. Captain Troy Davis knew better. He stood on the bridge of his ship, the Nightfall, watching alien vessels through his sensors. The ship was invisible to their scanners, hidden by technology that did not exist when humans were exiled. His crew worked quietly around him, gathering information that would have shocked the council. "Captain, we have a clear view of the convoy," said Navigator Kate Young. Her fingers moved across her control panel with practiced skill. 12 cargo ships, 2 escorts, same pattern they've used for months. Troy nodded. The aliens had grown lazy in their security. They believed themselves safe from human interference. They thought wrong. "Take detailed scans," Troy ordered. "I want to know what they're carrying and where they're going." Systems analyst Dan Cooper bent over his instruments. "Looks like mining equipment, sir. Heavy machinery heading for the Kepler system." Troy smiled without humor. Kepler had been a human colony once. Now, the Zephyrians strip-mined the world for rare metals. They sold those metals to other alien races at huge profits, all built on land that humans had cleared and cities that humans had built. The aliens thought they had won. They had no idea that ships like the Nightfall watched them every day. Hidden human vessels tracked their movements, recorded their conversations, and mapped their weaknesses. The exile had forced humanity to become invisible, and invisible enemies were the most dangerous kind, far from the trade routes. Dr. Sarah Kim worked in a laboratory deep inside an asteroid. The space around her hummed with energy as she tested her latest invention. The quantum tunneling drive had taken her 15 years to perfect. Now it could move a ship across the galaxy in minutes instead of months. "Another successful test," she told her assistant. "The drive can handle larger ships now." "How large?" asked the young man. Sarah smiled. "Large enough." She did not say more. The fewer people who knew the full scope of human preparations, the better. But ships the size of cities could now travel faster than anything the aliens possessed. When the time came, humanity would not be limited by distance or time in another hidden facility. Engineer Max Turner put the finishing touches on an artificial intelligence system. The AI was unlike anything that existed before. It could think, learn, and adapt faster than any biological mind. It could control thousands of systems at once and make decisions in microseconds. "Good morning, Max," the AI said in a friendly voice. "I have completed the analysis of alien weapon systems. Would you like to see the results?" "Show me," Max said. The air filled with glowing displays. Charts and numbers floated around the room, showing the strengths and weaknesses of every alien military force. The AI had studied decades of data and found flaws that human commanders could exploit. "Fascinating," Max said as he read the reports. "They haven't improved their defenses in 20 years. They believe themselves safe," the AI replied. "This makes them vulnerable," Max agreed. The aliens had stopped innovating because they faced no threats. They used the same weapons, the same tactics, and the same strategies they had used for generations. Meanwhile, humanity had spent every day of their exile creating new ways to fight. Admiral Grace Miller stood in the command center of the most secret facility in human space. Around her, technicians worked on projects that would have terrified the Galactic Council. New ships took shape in the construction bays, built with metals that were stronger than steel and weapons that could crack planets. "Status report," Grace said to her chief engineer. "The first Freedom-class ship will be ready for trials next month. The others will follow within 6 months." Grace nodded. The Freedom-class vessels were larger and more powerful than anything humans had built before the exile. They carried weapons that could destroy entire fleets and shields that could stop any known attack. Most importantly, they were completely invisible to alien sensors. "What about the crews?" Grace asked. "Training proceeds on schedule. We have enough qualified personnel for 50 ships. 50 ships that could each defeat 100 alien vessels." Grace allowed herself a small smile. The Council had wanted to contain humanity. Instead, they had given humans the time and motivation to become unstoppable. On the dark side of the moon, Agent Lucy Roberts met with her contact. The alien trader was nervous, constantly looking over his shoulder. He had good reason to be afraid. Selling information to humans was punishable by death in Council space. "The Krellian fleet movements you requested," the trader said, sliding a data chip across the table. "Patrol schedules, weapon inventories, command codes." Lucy took the chip and handed over a small bag. Inside were rare elements that humans had learned to synthesize. The aliens paid enormous amounts for these materials, not knowing that humans could now make them easily. "Same time next month?" Lucy asked. The trader nodded and hurried away. Lucy watched him go, then activated her communicator. "Base, this is Raven. Package acquired. Coming home." Networks like this existed throughout alien space. Human agents worked in the shadows, building relationships with criminals, dissidents, and anyone willing to sell information. They learned about alien technology, politics, and military plans. Knowledge was power, and humans were gathering both. In a training facility, hidden in the asteroid belt, Colonel Paul Martinez watched his students practice. They were not ordinary soldiers. These men and women had trained for years in techniques designed specifically to fight aliens. They knew how to exploit the weaknesses of every enemy species. "Remember," Paul told them, "Zephyrians are strong, but slow. Hit them fast, and move before they can react. Krellians rely on their armor. Find the weak spots and strike there." The Hive Collective thinks as one mind. Confuse their communications, and they become helpless. The soldiers nodded and continued their exercises. They practiced with weapons that could cut through alien armor like paper. They learned to move in ways that alien minds could not predict. They studied alien psychology and culture to understand how their enemies thought. These soldiers would never serve in a traditional army. They were preparing for a different kind of war. When humanity finally revealed itself, these troops would strike at the heart of alien power, while their enemies were still trying to understand what was happening. Captain Ross Taylor flew his ship through a series of impossible maneuvers. The Freedom-class vessel responded to his commands like it was reading his mind. Engines that defied known physics pushed the ship faster than light without entering hyperspace. Weapons charged with energy that could melt mountains locked onto targets that existed only in the computer simulation. "Incredible," said his weapons officer. "We destroyed the entire test fleet in under 3 minutes. And they never saw us coming," added the navigator. "Their sensors couldn't track us at all." Ross felt a mix of pride and anticipation. Ships like this would carry humanity back to the stars. The aliens who had exiled them would face technology beyond their understanding. The galaxy that had rejected humanity would kneel before human power as the years of exile continued. The alien races grew comfortable with their dominance. The Zephyrians expanded their trade empire. The Krellians built massive fleets. The Hive Collective spread across worlds that had once belonged to humans. They divided the galaxy among themselves and forgot about the species they had locked away. They did not know that human eyes watched their every move. They did not suspect that human agents walked among them. They could not imagine that human scientists had surpassed their technology by decades. The exile had been meant to contain humanity's danger. Instead, it had given that danger time to grow into something unstoppable. In hidden bases throughout the outer system, humanity prepared for their return. They built ships that could not be detected. They trained soldiers who could not be defeated. They developed weapons that could not be stopped. The galaxy had exiled them to prevent a threat. Soon, they would learn that they had created their own destruction. The silent years were almost over. Soon, it would be time for humanity to remind the galaxy why they had been feared in the first place. The Krellian patrol ship Dominator had been guarding the edge of human space for 3 years. Captain Zektar and his crew thought their job was easy. Watch for any humans trying to escape their prison. Destroy them if they appeared. Nothing ever happened until today. "Sir, detecting an energy signature," reported the sensor operator. His voice carried a note of confusion. "It doesn't match anything in our database." Zektar walked to the sensor station. On the screen, he saw a reading. That made no sense. Something was out there, but it appeared and disappeared like a ghost. "Probably just solar radiation," he said. "Mark it in the log and continue patrol." The energy signature vanished completely. For 30 seconds, the Krellian ship continued on its route. Then space itself seemed to tear open, and death emerged from the darkness. Commander Nick Allen watched through the viewscreen of the human ship Defiance as his weapons tore the alien vessel apart. The Krellian ship had no time to send a distress signal. In moments, nothing remained but glowing debris. "Target destroyed," reported his weapons officer. "No survivors detected." "Good," Nick said. "Set course for the next patrol ship. We have 7 more to eliminate before dawn." The Defiance moved through space like a hunting shark. Its stealth systems made it invisible to alien sensors. Its weapons could destroy any ship in seconds. The Krellians had no idea that death was coming. For them, by morning, 8 patrol ships had simply vanished. The Krellian Border Command received no distress calls, no warnings, no explanations. Their ships were there one moment and gone the next. Panic spread through their ranks as they tried to understand what was happening. Similar attacks occurred throughout the galaxy. Alien ships disappeared near asteroid fields, behind moons, and in empty space. The attacks followed no pattern that alien minds could understand. Military vessels, cargo haulers, and research ships all fell victim to an invisible enemy. Captain Emma Brooks led her crew through the Zephyrian supply depot like ghosts. Her soldiers moved in perfect silence, their armor bending light around them. The alien guards never saw them coming. "Charges placed," whispered Sergeant Kevin Palmer through the comm system. "Ready to detonate." Emma nodded. Around her, the massive depot stored weapons and supplies for half the Zephyrian fleet. In 10 minutes, it would all be space dust. "All teams withdraw," she ordered. "We leave in 5 minutes." The human raiders disappeared as quietly as they had arrived. When the explosions began, they were already light years away. The depot and everything in it vanished in a chain of fireballs that could be seen from 3 systems away. Lieutenant Commander Ryan Scott sat in front of dozens of screens, his fingers dancing across control panels. Around him, other specialists worked to break into alien communication networks. They had been preparing for this moment for years. "I'm in," Ryan announced. "Full access to the Hive Collective's command frequency." "What should we send them?" asked his teammate. Ryan smiled. "Everything they don't want to hear." False orders flooded the Hive network. Ships received commands to attack their own allies. Battle fleets turned on each other based on fake intelligence reports. Confusion spread through the collective as their perfect unity dissolved into chaos. The attacks continued for months. Alien leaders held emergency meetings, trying to understand what was happening. Some blamed terrorists. Others suspected a new alien species. None considered the possibility that humans had returned. The breakthrough came when a damaged human ship was forced to flee an ambush. Zephyrian scouts followed its trail back toward the Sol system. For the first time in decades, alien eyes saw human vessels operating beyond their prison. The news shocked the Galactic Council. The species they had exiled was not only free, but attacking with technology that seemed impossible. Emergency sessions were called. Military advisors demanded action. Fear replaced the comfort they had felt for so long. "How many ships do they have?" asked the Zephyrian Chancellor, her tentacles writhing with anxiety. "Unknown," replied Admiral Kethra. "Our scouts detected at least 50 vessels before they were destroyed." 50 ships cannot threaten the entire galaxy," scoffed the Krellian representative. "Send a battle fleet to destroy them," others in the chamber agreed. The humans had grown bold, but they were still outnumbered, thousands to 1. A show of force would remind them of their place. The decision was made to send the largest fleet ever assembled to the Sol system. 500 warships from 6 different species would crush human resistance once and for all. The galaxy would see that the Council's authority could not be challenged. Ambassador Helen Parker stood before the Council chamber, but this time, humans were not on trial. She wore the uniform of the new Human Republic, crisp and clean despite her long journey. Behind her stood 2 guards, whose weapons and armor looked like nothing the aliens had ever seen. "Honored delegates," Helen said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. "I bring an ultimatum from the Human Republic." The aliens stirred uneasily. No exile species had ever dared return to this place. The very fact that humans could reach the Council station proved how much had changed. "You will immediately withdraw from all former human territory," Helen continued. "You will pay reparations for the damage done to human property. You will acknowledge human sovereignty over our expanded borders." Laughter echoed through the chamber. The Krellian delegate stood up, his armor clanking loudly. "You dare make demands? You are exiles, criminals. We have a fleet heading to your system right now to finish what we should have done decades ago." Helen smiled, and the expression sent chills through every alien in the room. "Yes, we know about your fleet. Admiral Kelly Roberts is waiting for them." Far from the Council station, Admiral Kelly Roberts stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Retribution. Around her, the human battle group waited in perfect formation. 50 ships faced, an alien armada 10 times their size. "Enemy fleet dropping out of hyperspace," reported her sensor officer. 500 ships, just as intelligence predicted. Kelly studied the tactical display. The alien fleet was massive, but poorly coordinated. 6 different species, using 6 different communication systems and tactical doctrines. They would get in each other's way more than they would help. All ships, prepare for battle, Kelly ordered. Remember, we're not just fighting for victory. We're fighting to send a message. The alien fleet commander was Zephyrian Admiral Vic. He had fought in dozens of battles and conquered entire star systems. As he looked at the small human force, he felt only contempt. 50 ships against 500, he told his officers. This will be over in minutes. Should we demand their surrender? Asked his tactical officer. No, Victor replied. We will destroy them all. Let the galaxy see what happens to those who defy the council. The battle began when the alien fleet opened fire. Thousands of energy beams and missiles streaked across space toward the human ships. The aliens expected to see immediate destruction. Instead, they watched their weapons splash harmlessly against shields that should not have existed. Impossible, breathed Admiral Victor. No shields can stop that much firepower. Kelly Roberts watched the alien barrage with calm interest. Her ship's shields had absorbed the attack without even flickering. Around her, the other human vessels remained undamaged. Our turn, she said quietly. All ships, open fire. The human response was devastating. Weapons that bent space itself lashed out at the alien fleet. Energy beams that could cut through planets sliced alien ships in half. Missiles that could track targets across light years found their marks with perfect accuracy. In the first minute of the human counterattack, 100 alien ships ceased to exist. The survivors scattered in panic, unable to understand what was happening. Their weapons could not penetrate human shields. Their armor could not stop human weapons. Their ships could not outrun human vessels. Admiral Victor watched his fleet die around him. Ships that had served for decades vanished in flashes of light. Crews that had fought across the galaxy were reduced to atoms in seconds. The humans were not just winning. They were demonstrating complete superiority. All ships retreat. He screamed into his communicator. Get us out of here. But there was no escape. Human ships moved faster than anything the aliens possessed. They appeared wherever the aliens fled, cutting off every route to safety. The battle became a hunt, and the aliens were the prey. When the fighting ended 6 hours later, not a single alien ship remained intact. Debris fields marked where the mighty fleet had died. The message was clear to anyone who cared to listen. Humanity had returned, and they were not the same species that had been exiled. Across the galaxy, news of the battle spread like wildfire. The impossible had happened. A human force, 1/10 the size of the alien fleet, had achieved complete victory. The exiles had become the masters. The galaxy would never be the same. The news of the battle reached every corner of the galaxy within days. 500 alien ships destroyed by 50 human vessels. The impossible had become reality, and fear spread through alien civilizations like wildfire. President Claire Morgan stood before the United Earth Assembly, addressing representatives from every human colony and station. The Great Hall buzzed with excitement as she prepared to speak about humanity's new future. My fellow humans, Claire began, her voice carrying 2 billion of listeners across human space. Today marks the end of our exile and the beginning of our expansion. We are no longer prisoners in our own system. We are the rightful masters of the galaxy. The assembly erupted in cheers. Decades of humiliation and isolation had ended with a single, decisive victory. Now, humanity would reclaim what had been stolen from them and take much more besides. General Adam Lewis walked through the streets of New Geneva, the capital city of Proxima Colony. Around him, construction crews worked to rebuild what the aliens had destroyed during the exile years. Human flags flew from every building, replacing the alien symbols that had marked this world for decades. Sir, we have the alien population counts, reported his aide, Colonel Jenny Martinez. About 2 million Zephyrians and 500,000 Krellians still live in the outer settlements. Adam nodded. When humans were exiled, alien colonists had moved on to human worlds. Now they faced a choice: accept human rule or leave. Set up relocation centers, Adam ordered. Anyone who wants to return to their home worlds gets free transport. Anyone who stays follows human law. What about resistance? There won't be any, Adam said with confidence. They've seen what happened to their fleets. They know better than to fight us. Colonial Administrator Beth Turner managed the transition on Mars. The Red Planet had been humanity's first major colony beyond Earth. Now it would serve as the model for how humans reclaimed their territory. The mining operations are back online, she reported to Earth Command. Production is up 300% from pre-exile levels. New technology allowed humans to extract resources far more efficiently than before. Machines that could work in any environment operated around the clock. The wealth that flowed from human worlds would fund further expansion. Trade Director Mike Phillips sat across from a delegation of nervous Valdorian merchants. The Valdorians had stayed neutral during the exile, but they understood that neutrality meant nothing now. They needed human permission to trade in this region of space. Your previous trade agreements are void, Mike told them. New contracts must include technology, sharing, and preferential rates for human goods. The lead Valdorian merchant's tentacles quivered with anxiety. Those terms are very difficult for us to accept. Mike shrugged. Then trade with someone else. Of course, you'll need to find a route that doesn't pass through human space. Good luck with that. The Valdorians had no choice but to agree. Human territory now controlled the major trade routes between the galactic core and the outer rim. Any species that wanted to engage in interstellar commerce had to deal with humanity. On human terms, the economic changes rippled throughout the galaxy. Human corporations, backed by superior technology and protected by unbeatable military forces, began dominating entire markets. Alien businesses found themselves unable to compete with human efficiency and innovation. Captain Sam Mitchell patrolled the space lanes in his cruiser, the Vigilant. His crew monitored shipping traffic and enforced the new human trade regulations. Pirates and smugglers had learned to avoid human space entirely. Captain, we're receiving a distress call, reported his communications officer. Hive Collective, freighter, under attack by raiders. Sam considered the request. The Hive Collective had been among the most aggressive supporters of human exile. They deserved no help from him. But protecting trade was protecting human interests. Set course to intercept, he ordered. We'll save them, but they'll owe us for it. The raiders fled as soon as they detected the human ship approaching. Sam's vessel was small compared to a battleship, but everyone in the galaxy knew that human ships punched far above their weight. The Hive freighter was saved, and its crew learned that human protection came with human expectations. Some alien species attempted to resist the new order. The Hive Collective, stung by their losses in the communication warfare, launched coordinated attacks on human shipping. Their insectoid warriors swarmed through space in waves, trying to overwhelm human defenses through sheer numbers. The response was swift and brutal. Captain Lisa Grant, now commanding the battleship Thunderbolt, led a strike force into the heart of Hive space. Her ships moved through the enemy fleet like death itself, destroying everything they encountered. Target the command nodes, Lisa, ordered her weapons officer. Cut off their communications and they become helpless. The Hive Collective fought as a single mind, with perfect coordination between their ships. But when human jammers disrupted their mental links, that strength became a weakness. Isolated ships wandered aimlessly, unable to coordinate with their allies. The human force destroyed them systematically. The brief Hive War lasted only 3 weeks. When it ended, the collective had lost half their fleet and sued for peace. The terms were harsh. complete submission to human authority, and massive reparations for the attacks. Dr. Jan Roberts, now head of the Galactic Research Initiative, oversaw the distribution of human technology to selected alien partners. The knowledge she controlled could advance alien civilizations by centuries or leave them falling further behind. The Valdorians have requested fusion technology, her assistant informed her. Should we approve the transfer? Jan considered the request. Have they met their trade quotas with human worlds? Yes, ma'am. Exceeded them by 12%. Then approve a limited transfer. Mark 7 fusion reactors only. Nothing more advanced. This was how the new galaxy worked. Alien species that cooperated with humanity received rewards in the form of technology and trade opportunities. Those that resisted found themselves isolated and primitive while their neighbors advanced. The Galactic Council tried to maintain its authority, but the reality of power had shifted completely. The old alliance that had exiled humanity crumbled as species competed to gain human favor. Former allies became rivals, each trying to position themselves as humanity's preferred partner. Senator Ray Clark represented human interests in the reformed council. The chamber where humans had once been condemned now housed debates about how to implement human policies across the galaxy. The motion before us today concerns standardized safety protocols for interstellar shipping, Ray announced to the assembly. The human delegation proposes adopting the Terra standard as the galactic baseline. Alien delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Terra standard was based entirely on human practices and technology. Adopting it would mean restructuring their entire shipping industry around human specifications. The Zephyrian delegation objects, spoke Chancellor Velta, her tentacles writhing with suppressed anger. This standard favors human manufacturers. Ray smiled politely. Of course it does. Human manufacturers make the best equipment. Would you prefer to use inferior alien technology that puts lives at risk? The vote was a foregone conclusion. Every species that depended on human protection or trade voted in favor. The few that objected found themselves outnumbered and ignored. The transformation accelerated as more alien governments realized that resistance was futile. The Krellian Empire, once proud and militaristic, became a junior partner in human expansion. Their warriors served under human commanders, learning human tactics and using human weapons. The Zephyrians, who had led the campaign for human exile, now competed desperately for human investment in their colonies. Their trade networks, once the backbone of their civilization, operated according to human commercial law. Even the mysterious, ethereal consortium, beings of pure energy, who rarely involved themselves in physical affairs, opened diplomatic relations with humanity. They offered their advanced knowledge of dimensional physics in exchange for human protection of their research stations. Cultural changes followed economic ones. Human entertainment, human languages, and human customs spread throughout the galaxy. Alien children learned Earth history alongside their own. Human universities established campuses on alien worlds, teaching the sciences and philosophies that had made humanity dominant. President Claire Morgan toured the galaxy, visiting worlds that had once been forbidden to humans. Everywhere she went, alien leaders competed to show their loyalty to the new order. They renamed cities in her honor and erected statues celebrating human achievements. 50 years ago, they called us too dangerous for civilized space, Claire said during a speech on the former Hive homeworld. Today, they beg us to bring our civilization to them. The audience, a mix of humans and aliens, applauded enthusiastically. The exiles had become the conquerors, not through force alone, but through the simple demonstration of superiority. The galaxy had learned that cooperation with humanity brought prosperity, while resistance brought destruction. The new order was not built on conquest, but on the recognition that human civilization represented the future. Species after species abandoned their old ways and adopted human principles of government, commerce, and social organization. The galaxy that had rejected humanity now begged to follow their lead. The exile that was meant to contain the human threat had instead created an irresistible force for change. The council that had once judged humanity now existed only to implement human will. The future belonged to humanity, and everyone else was invited to share in it on human terms. 50 years had passed since the exile ended. The galaxy bore little resemblance to the place that had once cast humanity out. Every major trade route, every important colony, and every center of learning operated under laws that traced their roots back to Earth. Chief Justice Lynn Foster presided over the Galactic Supreme Court, the highest legal authority in known space. The massive courtroom housed representatives from hundreds of worlds, all seeking justice under the system that humanity had created. The court will hear the case of the Rigel Mining Consortium versus the Altarian Colonial Authority, Lynn announced, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. The case involved a dispute over mining rights on a distant world. Under the old system, such conflicts might have led to war between species. Now they were settled through human legal principles that emphasized individual rights and contractual law. The Altarian representative, a tall being with crystalline skin, stood to present his case. He spoke in perfect standard English, the language that had become the common tongue of galactic civilization. Your Honor, the colonial authority granted these mining rights in good faith, following all proper procedures under the Terran Commercial Code. The opposing counsel, representing the mining consortium, countered with citations from human precedent law. Both sides had studied human legal philosophy extensively, knowing that success in the Galactic Court required understanding human principles. Lynn listened carefully to both arguments before rendering her judgment. The decision would be final and binding, enforced by the same military might that had established human dominance decades earlier. The court finds in favor of the colonial authority, she declared. The mining rights were properly granted under established law. The consortium's challenge lacks merit. This was how the galaxy worked. Now, disputes were settled through law rather than force. Justice was based on consistent principles rather than political power. The system was human in origin but universal in application. Admiral Joe Parker commanded the Galactic Defense Force from his flagship, the Constitution. The massive vessel patrolled the edge of known space, leading a fleet that included ships from dozens of different species. All served under human command and human military doctrine. Admiral, we're receiving a distress signal from the Vega system, reported his communications officer, a young Zephyrian, who had graduated from the Human Naval Academy. Unknown raiders attacking civilian shipping. Joe studied the tactical display. Vega lay at the edge of civilized space, where pirates and outlaws still operated beyond the reach of galactic law. Set course for Vega, he ordered. Maximum speed. Send word to the Third Fleet to join us there. The response was swift and overwhelming. Within hours, a task force of 50 ships jumped into the Vega system. The raiders, expecting easy prey, found themselves facing the most advanced military force in the galaxy. The pirates surrendered without firing a shot. They knew the reputation of the Galactic Defense Force and the futility of resistance. Their ships were impounded, their crews arrested, and the stolen cargo returned to its rightful owners. Another successful mission, Joe noted in his log. The Galactic Defense Force maintains peace in the Vega system. All raiders apprehended, no casualties sustained. Such operations occurred regularly throughout human space, which now encompassed most of the galaxy. The old division between alien and human territory had vanished. There was only civilized space, under human protection, and the wild frontier. Beyond. CEO Matt Green stood before the board of directors of the Terran Development Corporation, the largest commercial enterprise in the galaxy. The company's influence reached every inhabited world, bringing human technology and human business practices to trillions of beings. This quarter's profits exceeded projections by 18%, Matt announced to the mixed group of human and alien executives. Our expansion into the Outer Rim territories continues ahead of schedule. The corporation built cities, established trade networks, and developed entire star systems according to human planning principles. Alien worlds that had once struggled with poverty and primitive technology now enjoyed prosperity beyond their previous imagination. The Andromedans have requested a development package for their home system, reported the alien vice president of Eldorian, whose species had become humanity's most trusted partners. They're offering exclusive mineral rights in exchange. Matt nodded approvingly. The Andromedans had resisted human expansion for decades, clinging to their traditional ways. Now they begged for the same development that had transformed their neighbors. Approve the project, he decided. Full infrastructure package. They'll pay for it with resources and gratitude. This was the pattern throughout the galaxy. Species that embraced human guidance prospered beyond their wildest dreams. Those that resisted found themselves isolated and primitive, while their neighbors advanced into a golden age of technology and culture. Dr. Nina Rodriguez directed the Galactic Ethics Institute, spreading human moral philosophy throughout alien civilizations. Her work had transformed societies that had practiced slavery, cannibalism, and worse. Now they followed ethical systems based on human concepts of individual rights and dignity. The Scorpio Republic has abolished their caste system, she reported to the Institute's governing council. All citizens now enjoy equal rights under their new constitution. The Scorpi had once organized their society around rigid hierarchies, determined by birth. Members of lower castes lived as virtual slaves, denied education, property rights, and basic freedoms. Human influence had changed everything. How did the upper castes react? Asked her assistant. Remarkably well, Nina replied. They discovered that a free society is more prosperous for everyone. Former slaves became productive workers and consumers. The economy grew by 40% in the first year alone. This transformation repeated itself across the galaxy. Human ideas about democracy, free markets, and individual liberty proved their worth through practical results. Alien societies that adopted these principles flourished while those that clung to old ways stagnated. Captain Alex Turner commanded the exploration ship Horizon, pushing the boundaries of known space ever further outward. His crew included representatives from every major species, all working together to expand the frontiers of galactic civilization. Long-range sensors detect a star system with potentially habitable worlds, reported his science officer, a brilliant ethereal being whose energy form interfaced directly with the ship's computers. Estimated distance, 400 light-years beyond current borders. Alex smiled at the discovery. Every new world meant new opportunities for settlement and development. The galaxy that had once seemed vast and hostile now appeared full of possibilities for expansion. Set course for the new system, he ordered. Let's see what's out there. The Horizon leaped forward at speeds that would have amazed the aliens who first exiled humanity. Its drives bent space and time, allowing travel across impossible distances in mere hours. The technology that made such journeys possible had emerged from the forced isolation of the exile years, as they traveled toward the unknown system. Alex reflected on how much had changed. The ship's crew worked together seamlessly, despite their different species and backgrounds. They shared a common language, common laws, and common goals. They were no longer aliens to each other, but citizens of the same galactic civilization. The exploration revealed 3 worlds suitable for colonization. Within months, development teams would arrive to begin the process of settlement. New cities would rise according to human architectural principles. New governments would form based on human constitutional law. New economies would develop using human commercial practices in the grand capital of New Geneva. Now the seat of galactic government, President Sarah Martinez addressed the planetary assembly. Representatives from 1,000 worlds listened as she outlined humanity's vision for the next century of expansion. "We stand at the threshold of unlimited growth," she declared. "Our civilization encompasses 90% of the galaxy's inhabited systems. Our principles guide the development of 1,000,000,000,000 beings. Our future has no boundaries." The audience included members of every major species, all serving in positions of authority within the human-led government. The Galactic Council that had once condemned humanity now existed only as an advisory body to the human galactic administration. "The exile that our predecessors endured was not our punishment," Sarah continued. "It was our preparation. By forcing us to develop in isolation, the old council created the very force that would reshape galactic civilization in humanity's image." The irony was not lost on anyone present. The species that had feared human influence had inadvertently given humanity the time and motivation to become irresistible. The exile that was meant to contain the human threat had instead nurtured it into an unstoppable force for change. In the Museum of Galactic History, visitors could see artifacts from the old era. Alien weapons that had once seemed invincible now appeared primitive and crude. Alien constitutions that had once governed mighty empires now gathered dust as historical curiosities. The galaxy had moved beyond its past into a future defined by human achievement. Tour guides, representing dozens of different species, explained to schoolchildren how the galaxy had evolved. They spoke of the dark ages before human influence, when war and poverty dominated interstellar affairs. They described the transformation that followed humanity's rise to power, bringing peace, prosperity, and justice to all. "Why did the old council exile the humans?" asked a young Zephyrian student during one such tour. The guide, an elderly human veteran of the exile years, smiled at the question. "They were afraid of us. They thought we were too dangerous to share the galaxy with them. Were they right?" asked another student. The guide considered the question carefully. "Yes and no. We were dangerous to their old ways of doing things. We brought ideas that challenged their comfortable assumptions about how society should work, but we weren't dangerous to beings who were willing to embrace something better." The lesson was clear to all who cared to learn it. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy through force alone. They had won through the simple demonstration that their way of life produced better results than any alternative. The exile that was meant to protect alien civilization had instead doomed it to obsolescence. Standing in the observation deck of the orbital platform above Earth, Ambassador Helen Parker looked out at the stars. Ships from hundreds of worlds moved through the traffic lanes, carrying goods and passengers according to schedules maintained by human traffic control. The Sol system had become the beating heart of galactic civilization. She remembered the day she had delivered humanity's ultimatum to the terrified council. The species that had once held absolute power now competed for human attention and favor. The galaxy that had rejected humanity now revolved around human achievement. The exile was over. The galaxy had learned to follow human laws, not because they were forced to, but because those laws worked better than anything they had known before. The council that had cast humanity out now existed only to rubber-stamp human decisions. The future belonged to humanity, and those wise enough to embrace human leadership. The humans they had exiled were dangerous. The humans who returned were inevitable, and the galaxy was better for it.